What is up, guys? Welcome back to FitBodySecrets, where my mission is to bring you guys motivation, inspiration, and a ton of tips to help you guys on your fitness journey. And today, I'm bringing it back to basics. I'm super fired up for my new program, and I've been really trying to think of a new name for it because I like the name, but it doesn't really encompass all the people that I want to help out there because I full-heartedly believe that nutrition should not be solely focused on an achievement, but it should be something we can actually maintain long term. And as much as I know that a lot of my clientele, most of you guys out there are looking to lose fat, I want my solution to be more of a permanent change. And so I have it right now labeled as Fat Loss Simplified, but that name is subject to change because the things I teach in it aren't just applied to fat loss. They're applied to whether your goals are to build lean muscle tissue, perform better, optimize your hormones or your health. And today, what I want to talk about is honestly, I want to talk about macros. I want to really break down a macro based nutrition approach because I think that there is a lot of misconceptions about it, and I will never label myself a macro coach, but macro coaching or macronutrients, I should say, are a part of my coaching program, and I want to give you guys a little bit of an understanding as to why they're important, how to simplify and ensure that you are getting the most out of using a macro based approach. And it's pretty much it. So I'm going to roll right into it. First thing I want to start with is asking you guys if you guys do get any value out of this episode, if you can just simply shoot me a review on Apple Podcasts, like, subscribe on my YouTube channel. Whatever you can do to help me grow and help me reach more people is always greatly appreciated. I love talking about this kinds of stuff. I love when you guys ask me questions. If you're watching live and you put something in the comments, I try not to get distracted, but I often do get distracted because I want to answer your questions. I'm here to help. So that's my only ask of you guys before I get rolling into this topic for the day. Now, I'm going to start by actually asking you to ask yourself if maybe you have tried a macro based approach and found yourself overwhelmed or maybe unsuccessful with actually being able to stick to it. Or maybe you've actually had some success with a macro based approach, but you had a really hard time maintaining it and it became stressful and frustrating. And you try to get yourself back on track with it, but you just can't seem to commit the way you did the first time. Likely there was a couple of mistakes you might have made along the way, and I want to talk about a few of those mistakes first and foremost. Is number one is if you went online and you found an online calculator and you just started to try and figure that out, that is probably one of the worst things you can do. For one, if you have no idea like how to even apply macros, this is like literally calculus to you. It looks foreign. You're like, what am I supposed to do with this? In fact, I offer a macro RX, and if you've never tracked macros or understand macronutrients, it's going to be really not beneficial to you because you're not going to know how to apply it. And that's why I'm going to simplify it today. But two, it doesn't take into consideration how much are you currently eating? Like, what does your current diet look like? If you're right now chronically under eating and you're living on 11, 12, 1300 calories a day, and this calculator is like, eat 2200 calories a day, you're going to be like, that's crazy. I'm not losing weight eating 1200 calories a day. Why am I going to eat 2200 calories a day? And this is where having a professional guide you through this journey can be very helpful. But that's why online calculators can sometimes lead you in the wrong direction. Number two, I think that a lot of people think that it's all about the numbers and that they've got to be like spot on. And I see a lot of people that play macro Tetris and they'll fill their day. At the end of the day, they're sitting there trying to, eat a couple of pieces of candy to get their carbs up and not let their fats go over, or they're trying to get an extra couple of grams of protein on their plate. And guys, your body doesn't like work that way. It's not a math project. So we really want to be looking at a food focused approach that's really going to be more helpful for you and also allow you to eventually move away from tracking your calories and your macros if you don't want to long term. And I think number three is just not understanding how to actually gauge progress and measure if the macronutrient prescription that you're using is actually effective. I think that a lot of people, especially in the fat loss world, are so conditioned to want to see the scale go down every single day. They want to see boom, boom, boom. They're checking it. They're checking it every day. It's down a couple of ounces, and they're not understanding that it's actually about a month of consistency that you want to see if something's going to be working before you actually start to say, hey, this isn't going to work for me. Give something enough time to work before you tell yourself it's just not going to work. And that's really from two perspectives, not just from the results perspective, but if you're starting to learn something new, there's going to be a learning curve involved. So give yourself some time and patience. So that's a couple of things I feel like people run into when they first get started or they consider using macros that they really don't think about that might be making it harder for them to be effective. Now, when it comes down to it, guys, macronutrients aren't a diet. So following a macro-based approach isn't a diet. It's just a macro-based approach to fat loss or optimizing things. Macronutrients are a part of your diet, regardless of if you're tracking them or not. So everything you eat has macronutrients and micronutrients in it for the most part. So protein, carbs, and fats are included in all the foods you eat. So whatever diet you go on has quote unquote macros. And it's just that some diets control your macronutrients in a different way by honestly just telling you to eliminate them. If I go on a carnivore diet, I'm eating a only protein-based diet. That's a macro restricted diet of carbs and, well, not really fats, but I'm restricting myself from carbohydrates on that diet. Going on a low carb diet, cutting out carbohydrates, I'm still eating macros. I'm eating carbs. I'm eating protein and fat, but no carbs. So macronutrients are a part of your diet regardless. So it's important to understand how they fit into the plan. And they are macronutrients. So macros means the big picture. These are the nutrients that matter the most for your overall health. Yes, micronutrients matter, fiber, vitamins, minerals. We need all of those things to keep our body healthy, keep our electrolytes up. But our macronutrients are our body's main source of energy. And those are the marbles that really, really matter. So we do want to actually understand that they are a part of your diet, and learning how to dial them in, regardless of your goals, can be super, super helpful. So just some things to think about. So here's one of the biggest things I think that people don't understand that macro tracking can really help you with. If you are somebody who struggles with why you can't lose weight, I don't know why I can't lose weight. Doesn't matter what I try. I've lost weight, I've plateaued, whatever. And you want to troubleshoot why you cannot lose weight. If you are tracking your macros the right way and you are doing that, you are able to identify the problems, the gaps in your diet, the surpluses in your diet, and correct those things if you're willing to make those changes. Because in order to track your macros and be effective at it, you need to be tracking your food and hopefully measuring the portions of the foods that you're consuming. So if you're doing those two things, you now have literally the best data to be able to adjust without actually having to follow a diet. So what a lot of people do when it comes to fat loss is they're like, I want to lose weight. What's the easiest way to lose weight? You go online, you find a diet, and you start following it. But what if your problem wasn't carbohydrates and you go on a low carb diet? What if your problem really was just that you were eating out too often, and maybe just by cooking at home, you could have eaten or seen results? It's things like that that people don't understand. So just the fact of committing to tracking macros is going to help you identify and fix the problems. If you find yourself hungry all the time, you're always craving foods and you don't know why you're doing that, you track your food and you start to realize, oh, wow, it seems like I don't really eat much calories until about 4 o'clock. Maybe if I start eating earlier in the day, I won't be so hungry. So it helps you actually troubleshoot other areas of your diet that need to be fixed, because you're looking at your food from a whole piece, from the whole perspective. Okay. So I want to talk about a couple of other things that people go wrong that will actually help you understand what also might be causing some of the problems why you're not seeing results. Is I think that people, when they start to think about tracking macros, is they kind of half-ass it. They kind of go in with a half-ass approach, and they're like, yeah, I'm like loosely tracking, but they're not using a food scale. They're tracking half of their week. They're not really fully committed to the program. So, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is if you guys are really looking to dial in your nutrition and you want to use a macro-based approach, I want you guys to actually commit to like 12 weeks. 12 weeks of consistency of actually tracking everything and giving it a chance to actually become routine and easy for you to do, but also for you to actually see the benefits of it. But that does mean going all in on this concept. And I'm going to make it simple for you today on what all in looks like. Let's simplify things. Okay. So, macro tracking can be applied no matter where you are in your fitness journey, whether you are just starting off and you have like no nutritional knowledge at all, or if you've been doing this for a long time and you've like made all of the changes. You've dialed in the food quality, you've tried different challenges, you've tried things, and now you're looking to take the next step. And I'm going to challenge you, even if you've done a macro-based approach, but you haven't failed or you failed to actually maintain it, these things that I'm going to talk about today might actually help make you more effective at maintaining things. Okay. So first things first, okay. When you want to get started with macro tracking, whether you've done this before unsuccessfully or you are looking to just get started, the first thing you want to do is to remove the expectations of macros. Okay, just remove it altogether. And the first thing that you're going to do is just get used to two things: using a food scale and keeping a food diary. Like, you're not worried about controlling your portion sizes. You're not worried about, how much protein you're getting in. You're not worried about any of those things. You're literally just getting used to using the tools. Just like when you get a new tool or you get a new toy or you start playing a new game or a new sport, you have a learning curve. You have to learn the skills, right? So before you add the extra pressure of now having to use a tool and be like a perfectionist with it, let's remove that altogether and just get used to, for like the first 7 days, just tracking. That gives you enough time to also track times when you're at home and things are within your control. And then also when you're out and about and you're having to track things that are maybe not prepared by you. Make it simple by just focusing on that one thing. It's like my first week of coaching with me is, hey, I don't care what you're eating. I don't care how it looks. Like, just track your food. And the reason is I want people to have less pressure on changing numbers and all that kinds of stuff right away. I just want to see how their nutrition looks across the day, how balanced their meals are or unbalanced their meals are, and just get them used to just tracking their food and using a food scale. It removes all of the extra pressure. Okay. The second thing that you're going to need to know is you're going to need to know how much you should be eating. And this is where a lot of people go wrong, as I mentioned. They go online, they find an online calculator. And as I mentioned, you might be eating 12 or 1,300 calories a day. And it's like you should be eating 22, or maybe you're eating 4,000 calories a day. And it's telling you should be eating 15 or 1,600. Whatever it looks like, we don't want to have these big extreme changes. And that's why we want to know about where total daily energy expenditure is. That's your TDEE, or what about your body needs. But we want to know how far off from that you are and what's going on with your weight relative to that. So if you've been a chronic undereater, which typically what I see is that people think that they're undereating, but what's really happening is they're undereating a portion of the week and then they're overeating the other portion of the week. And it's ending up balancing out to calorie maintenance. So we want to know how much your body is eating, how much you're eating relative to how much your body actually needs. And the first step is just kind of optimizing that, like just figuring out, all right, if I'm way under and I maybe am that person that's under eating and then overeating, let's just get you balanced across the 7 days first. And then we can kind of start to build up or down from there. So you want to know how much you should be eating. If you guys don't know how much you should be eating, not a plug for coaching, but a plug for you to go ahead and fill out a free macro RX. I don't think I have that in my show notes, but I'll make sure I put the link in the comments. Or you can go ahead and reach out to me for a strategy session and maybe jump in on my Fat Loss Simplified program, which I mentioned earlier. I am going to be changing the name of. But regardless, you want to know about how much you should be eating. And if you don't want me to do it, what you can do is you can go online and you want to look for a calculator that uses the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. That's probably the most accurate one. And giving yourself a ballpark figure of what your body should be taking in just to maintain. Don't worry about changing up for fat loss or building or all that stuff. Just know what maintenance looks like and compare where you're currently at. Okay. Because we want to make sure that we're starting off somewhere. If you're well under that, I'm going to tell you honestly, I wouldn't change. In fact, I would just optimize. I would try and bring things up a little bit, optimize based on your hunger levels. but you really need to know how much you should be eating for maintenance, and then we can adjust from there. Basically, the first step is going to be dialing in your protein. And since you're already getting comfortable using a food scale and weighing your food out, um, getting enough protein and balancing out your meals. And this is again where I talk about people going wrong. People focus so much on the daily numbers, like I've got to be at this number at the end of the day. And that somewhat matters, but what matters most is your calorie intake and your protein. And like I said, that you're building balance in your meals, that you actually feel satiated. If you are somebody who finds yourself always getting cravings in the middle of the day or or after lunch, usually if you look back at your last meal, it might have been, especially if you're in a dieting phase, did you have enough carbohydrates at that meal? Did you have enough fats at that meal? Or was it just like chicken and lettuce? Those types of things will cause you to end up getting more cravings later on in the day. So always take a look at that stuff as well. Okay, so you want to know how much you should be eating. You're building balance. And the next thing that I wrote down, which is going to be really key for you guys, is I would like to call it a prerequisite for macros, but like I said, you don't have to have any prerequisites for this. You can apply it at the same time, is just understanding how to build a balanced meal. Like it shouldn't be 5 different sources of fats and then like no protein, right? Which is like a lot of times you'll see people that'll have like a burger and fries. So they've got like a hamburger, which is high fat. They've got the French fries that are fried and fat. And then they get the bun, which is carbs, and they got the fries that are carbs. And they have no nutrients. Maybe they're adding avocado or cheese or mayo to their burger. They've got so many sources of fats, but not enough protein, not enough veggies. So you want to be looking at your meal and seeing, okay, where's my protein? Where's my carbs? Where's my fats? And calorically, am I getting a pretty good balance of all 3 of those things in that meal? Meaning, are the calories coming from each of those components pretty equal? So I can go all down the rabbit hole of how many calories are in a gram of protein and all that. But just honestly, if you're using a food tracker, it does all that for you. Okay. So you don't really have to stress about that kinds of stuff. So I call that relying on the foundation. That's building a solid foundation so that eventually, when you're no longer tracking your macros, you know how to build a meal and you're not having to sit there and plug and play in macro Tetris. Then you want to have a loose plan. So as you're working to dial things in, you want to always have a loose plan. Some of my clients, I've got clients that literally plan their whole week out ahead of them. That's not my thing. I'm literally going to plan essentially loosely what I'm going to have for the day, but I might make a couple of tweaks here and there. And you should probably do the same thing. You want to have that flexibility built in. That also allows you to, let's just say you do have a pretty good routine and somebody's like, hey, you want to go out to dinner tonight? You can now take a look at what you're currently eating for the day and be like, yeah, sure, let's go out to eat. Where do you want to go? You can take a look at the menu and kind of plug and play and swap them things out that you normally were going to have for that meal to be able to incorporate a more flexible meal. This is where people can get the benefits of tracking macros from a food relationship benefit. So a lot of people in the dieting world tend to be very restrictive, and they see if they are to eat something like pizza or sushi or macaroni and cheese or a cookie as they're cheating on their diet. Whereas if you realize that all of those foods can fit in as long as you're keeping balance, it's not such a big thing. So you can actually stay consistent while also enjoying the food that you're consuming throughout the week. So it allows for that flexibility, but having a loose plan is always the best case of action or course of action, because at least you have like that, and it's almost like a backup plan. So especially for like the weekends, if you find yourself on the go a lot, you can have a loose plan and always be able to kind of make adjustments to that. I do recommend for some people when they're just getting started, when they're loosely planning, don't just plan up here, actually put it in the app, because that just kind of sets it in stone and you can always delete, but now you're not thinking about food in the moment. I think another big problem that people do is that when they're trying to get used to this, they're literally trying to think of things in the moment. And most of the time, you're going to make the wrong decisions in the moment. Okay, so we want to make sure we're looking at that as well. A couple of other things that I want to talk about, which is why I also love a macro-based approach, is since I started my own fitness journey, I have read nutrition labels. And a lot of people don't even look at what's in their food. But following a macro-based approach is going to help you, because it's going to help you start to look at those nutrition labels, looking at the contents of your food and make more educated decisions. Because when you're plugging it in, you want to look and see, all right, what's a serving size? which macronutrients am I getting from this food? Am I going to be satiated? And it's going to make you ask yourself, is this worth it? And you can also learn how to figure out different foods that you can fit into your plan that might replace things that are higher in fats or higher in carbs to make your meals have more volume, more satiating, but still giving you the same flavors. So, perfect example that I love is pizza. I love pizza. Pizza is a higher calorie food for the serving size. So, if I go out to eat 2 pieces of pizza from a New York restaurant, I'm probably setting myself back about 700 calories. However, if I want pizza and it's a Tuesday night and I'm in a fat loss phase, I can get some low carb pitas and some marinara sauce, some low fat cheese and pepperoni, and I can make a couple of pizzas for like a third of the calories and probably have more volume. And that's going to help keep me on track maybe when I am in a fat loss phase and I'm getting a craving for things. So that's where it's cool because you can kind of reinvent the wheel. And those meals can become easy rotations for you when you're no longer trying to lose weight. If you want pizza, but you don't want to splurge, like it's a great way to get a pizza fix without that. I just love using that as an example. And then the most important thing here, I think, when it comes to getting used to macro tracking is to ensure that you're not always trying to reinvent the wheel. Like every single day doesn't have to be different. In fact, I love using the analogy of like most people wake up every morning, have the same coffee, have the same breakfast, or they stop at the same coffee shop. Most people are just conditioned to eat a lot of the same meal rotations, even though they don't realize it. And then for whatever reason, they're like, oh, I'm dialing in my nutrition. I don't want to eat the same thing every day. And usually what I find is the problem is that they are dialing in their nutrition with meals that they actually don't enjoy, because the other meals they were eating, they're fine eating them the same thing over and over again. They'll eat the same donut every morning. They like it. But when you're dialing in your nutrition and you're not happy about the food that you're consuming, now you're like, I really don't want to eat that. That looks better. So we want to make sure that we're building meals that we enjoy and repeating them. I personally think what works best for most of my clients is, rather than trying to change every single meal every single day, having some consistency for the week. And then you can always swap things out from week to week or make smart swaps here and there. Like maybe if you like, I love food prep versus meal prep. So I'll prep up like some chicken, some ground beef or whatever for my main meals. And then throughout the week, I can either make like a salad with the chicken, I can make a wrap with the chicken, I can make a sandwich, I could use it for a stir fry. I could do different things and just change out the other components. And the same thing with the beef. I can make tacos, I can make a tostada, I can do all kinds of things. I can make some kind of a pita, I can make a spaghetti marinara. I can do different things with those foods, but still keeping the macros pretty much the same. So allowing yourself to kind of keep your meals similar without having to feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. And that does take give yourself about 4 to 6 weeks of getting a good solid food rotation. You'll have like 3 or 4 different breakfasts, 3 or 4 different lunches, 3 or 4 different dinners. And I mean, think about it this way. Growing up, I know that in my family, we kind of stuck to a lot of the same meals. It's the same thing here. You're just recreating those. So if you typically know your family rotation of meals right now, you're just building new ones for yourself. I think the only last thing that I wanted to cover here today was that the misconception is that if you start tracking your macronutrients, you should have to track forever. Or that's what your thought process is. Or if you've lost weight with macros and then you found yourself unsuccessful at maintaining it, it does come down to not understanding the foundation of what a meal should look like and looking at your nutrition habits. So typically what I find when people have a hard time maintaining is that they end up adding back in random snacking. So they're just like grabbing things throughout the day, having a few bites here and there, which is more as a habit-based change that macro tracking will help you with and should continue on beyond macro tracking. But 2 is the whole eating by numbers thing, that you should be learning how to build balance, eyeballing portions, and all that kind of stuff. So that if you do not want to track your food for the rest of your life, that you can move from what I would like to call intentional eating to more intuitive eating. And this is all part of the program that I started, and that's why I want to change the name. If y'all have any tips for me, I'm taking tape. I'll take names and maybe give you a little. If your name gets picked, I'll give you a little something. But I'm looking for a name for it because right now it's Fat Loss Simplified. Originally it was Fat Loss Accelerator, and then I'm like, I don't know if I like that. It was Fat Loss Simplified. Now I'm like, I really wanted to even have fat loss in it, guys. I want you guys to look and feel your best. That's what I want for everybody out there. I want you guys looking lean. I want you guys feeling fit. I want you guys, feeling like you're getting stronger in the gym. I want you guys to be able to enjoy your life and have fun. So that's kind of what this program does incorporate. It just makes it a little bit more effective or cost effective for a lot of people. So and this is the stuff that we cover, and we have a weekly call. And I feel like if you're not in it and you have nutrition goals, you're missing out. So if you want more details on that program, there is a link in the show notes. I will also, like I said, drop in the comments my macro RX. If you're like, yeah, I really do want to get started, but I feel like I can kind of do it on my own, I can go ahead and get you one of those set up, and we'll go from there. Have a great day, guys.